Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second episode of Ask TotalBiscuit Anything, the Director's Cut, where I take questions and answers from my AMA that I did over on r/CynicalBrit on the 29th of September 2012, and I expand them and generally ramble on, because that's what people seem to like. Alright, thank you very much for your support on the first one, by the way. That was a really fantastic response, so I'm going to continue doing this, and let's go on to the next question. There are about 300 of these, so I think we'll continue with one that is guaranteed to cause a few problems one way or the other. So here it is, from Vistro24. What do you think is worse, V or r/gaming? Well, r/gaming is worse, and I think that there was a really good example of this, and this actually happened on the same day that I did my AMA, which was on the 29th, and it was this post from V. You know, V is a board on 4chan, Vidya, basically, if you don't already know. And it was a troll post. This was clearly not true. It provided no information whatsoever. It was designed just to stir things up, and r/gaming blindly believed it and upvoted it all the way to the front page before people said, oh, hang on a minute. Why on earth are you upvoting a post from V, taking it seriously, and then using it as ammunition against this person? And this was in regards to someone by the name of Anita Sarkisian that has been doing an awful lot of outspoken talks on the subject of feminism and, more to the point, misogyny within video games, the video game community, which is not exactly a new topic by any stretch, and it's not even something I really wish to venture into, honestly. And this thread was just absolutely awful, and you can say, oh, but the top comments were good, they actually said, what are you doing? But it's not the point. This thing got upvoted to the front page, and Reddit claims to be the front page of the internet, and they wouldn't necessarily be wrong. This is not a secret club. This is a site that gets 20 million unique users a month, and that's an old statistic. It's probably way higher than that now, considering the amount of coverage that Reddit's been getting in the mainstream media and things like that lately. And the moderators didn't do a damn thing about it, because with r/gaming, we don't moderate. We just, well, hands off, man, the community will sort it out. No, it won't. And r/gaming has been a really bad image board for ages. There's no worthwhile discussion on there whatsoever. Let's go to r/gaming right now, as of the time of this recording. So this is going to be different for you, but you'll see the same kind of stuff anyway. I say, oh, it's going to be different. It's actually not, because it's the same thing every single day. Okay, so let's see. Let's find a post that's interesting that isn't an image. On r/gaming, first 10 are images, 20... The entire front page is images, still images, still images... No video, or oh, there we go. The first video is actually the 75th, which is Abe's Odyssey HD pre-alpha footage. That's actually interesting. And everything else is just nonsense. It's pictures of memes. You know, if it's got impact with a black stroke around it, then yeah, you know it's terrible. All sorts of stupid images. Does anyone else remember Super Mario? Yeah, probably do, bro. Probably do. And of course, Valve worship and all sorts of nonsense like that. It's really, really bad. And you know what? I'm totally fine with them just posting crappy images. It's when they decide to get on a bandwagon and they decide to witch hunt someone that it gets really damaging. In this case, they really want to witch hunt this girl for whatever reason. This is not the first time they've done it, I might add, and they're willing to latch onto anything in order to make that happen, which includes a troll post on V. For fuck's sake, nobody takes V seriously, including V. If V has no illusions about being taken seriously, it knows it's a crap hole, it wallows in it. You can actually at least have some respect for V on the basis that everyone is anonymous and nobody gives a damn about anything that's actually posted there. Welcome to V, where everything is made up and the posts don't matter. The problem with Reddit in general is that it seems to think that it's a step above this kind of stuff, where in reality it actually isn't. I would say it's worse. I mean, no one on V really makes any claims to being a moral person, and it's an amoral crap hole for a reason. It's a vent. It's the heat sink of the internet. It's a place where you can go and shoot the shit, and nobody cares about what you've got to say, and you shouldn't care about what anyone else has to say, and that's fine. It's a really interesting posting environment that it causes. I don't necessarily think it's good all the time, but I don't think anyone on V thinks that either, so I don't think that really matters. Anyway, the problem with Reddit, again, is that it thinks it's above all of that stuff, and they often morally crusade against things. I mean, if you read r/atheism, you can clearly see how terrible some of the neckbeards on there are, and the term neckbeard is used with the greatest possible spite, I might add. Not a Reddit original. there's pretty much nothing on Reddit that is an original, but there are so many bad subreddits on there, and gaming is just one of them. Gaming is one of the most offensive, because if it just stayed as a dumb image board, then I wouldn't mind it so much. It's like, this board sucks, but at least it's not out to harm anybody, but every now and again it is out to harm people, and it has pretty much a weekly witch hunt for somebody that clearly doesn't deserve it. I've been on the end of one of them, yeah, so I've seen some pretty terrible things in my time, but Reddit's got this really weird thing going on where they really love 4chan. Like, they look up to it as a big brother, they kind of revere it, but they're too afraid to mimic it because mummy might shout at them for it. They're like, oh, I love V, they're so cool. Post there, you kidding me? The place is scary. Oh, holy imager, please act as my shield against the demons. And then you get kind of a, quote, best of V, which is usually just a bunch of dumb screen caps. Yeah, I hate r/gaming. I post a lot on r/games, which is actually a subreddit that was created as a result of gaming being so terrible. And it's getting worse because there's refugees coming from gaming that are shitting up r/games, and it's getting really quite annoying. But for the most part, r/games is still a good subreddit, and you'll find a lot of smaller subreddits that are actually really solid. Unfortunately, a lot of the big subreddits are pretty bad, and r/gaming, r/politics, r/atheism are all really good examples of terrible, terrible circle jerks. And then, of course, you got the subreddits that circle jerk the circle jerks, and then you got the subreddits that hate the circle... Again, I've referred to Reddit as a useful shithole, and with good reason. I think I'll stick to that. Isn't it interesting that the transition out through this particular video started with me deliberately censoring my swears and going down to minor words like crap instead of shit, and now I'm swearing. That's just what Reddit makes me do. I guess I'll just keep the original swear words in from the AMA. I don't think anyone minds. I'll put a little strong language warning. I know I don't usually swear in a lot of my videos, and that's deliberate. I just don't feel that it's all that necessary most of the time. Swearing's great for expressing yourself at times, but more often than not, it just doesn't actually benefit you from a presentation standpoint. Alright, let's go on to the next question. Avalons has this to say: best part of being an internet celebrity and worst part? And the answer that I gave to that was the people, and let me expand upon that, because it was a very short answer. I don't usually give short answers, I didn't throughout this entire AMA, but I thought that that one was particularly poignant, and it might be funny for some people, and it's true, though. It actually is. It encompasses everything that's good and bad about being a pseudo-internet celebrity, whatever that actually means. I like to be involved with the people that watch my videos in some respect. I like to interact with them, I like to answer their questions. I tend to be very open on Twitter. Like, you can ask me something on Twitter and you will usually get an answer as long as it's something that isn't easily found on Google. If you ask me something like that, then I probably won't answer you, or I'll link you to let me Google that for you, just to actually give you the hint. But no, I'm generally very open and accessible. I try to be. I enjoy it. I very much enjoy it, and I think it's also a fairly important part of the brand, but unfortunately that also leaves you open to the opposite side of things. Because you're very accessible, you can be very easily attacked, and that is something that some people do. Unfortunately, they feel the need to do that one way or the other. And it's also a case of taking a bit of pride in your work, to the point where you read something stupid and you get a headache from it. I think there's an idea that maybe I can't take criticism all that well. I don't think it's necessarily that. I think it's more down to the fact that the criticism given usually misses the point. And that really irritates me. That gets on my nerves. I find ignorance to be a bit infuriating. So when somebody just completely misses the point, I get the urge to slap them down. And then, of course, it's like, oh, you can't take criticism. It's like, but your criticism is bad, and you should feel bad. You didn't present it very well. You did it in a very spiteful way. You were very aggressive with it. You deliberately mixed in ad hominem. And at that point, you stop being taken seriously. I also keep thinking to myself, where did I go wrong when really bad stuff happens with the fan base? Like, for instance, the recent Retsupre episode on the Minecraft female companion mod, which was the most comically pathetic thing I've ever seen. And they riffed on that hard. And I liked the video because I found it hilarious. And I've been watching RP stuff since I was posting on the SALP forums, which was in 2008. So I've kept up with them for such a long time, and that series is hilarious. I've seen pretty much everything they've done. Now, when it comes down to something as silly as a Minecraft mod that adds big, blocky-breasted women into the game, you know that that's going to be comedy gold. So I like the video, and what happens? We got a bunch of my so-called fans that come along and say, oh, how dare you say this stuff? And then they just get to the point of ridiculous mental gymnastics to try and justify their point. One of them made this amazing leap. This is basically cyberbullying. Bullying is like slavery. What? What? Please explain to me how that works in your head. And honestly, we had people posting that video that said, TotalBiscuit, please stop liking these videos because your fans are stupid. And you know how embarrassing that is to me? That really is. I try to make content on a daily basis that provides either dissenting opinions or constructive criticism or different points of view on things. You know, that's why the mailbox exists. That's why I give dissenting opinions. That's why I play devil's advocate sometimes. I try to look at things from all sides of the argument, even if I only agree with one side of the argument. And I just can't understand who these people are that watch this content on a daily basis and still are just flat out ignorant of everything. How does this work? Do they just not watch Mailbox, or do they just not watch WTF? Maybe they just watch Terraria. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe Terraria just brings those kind of people in. But interacting with those people is a huge headache. And unfortunately, if you want to interact with the cool guys, when you're wading through YouTube comments, you've also got to deal with crap. And I can't stop myself, to the point where I've just had to block YouTube comments again entirely. I just cannot stop myself from responding to these guys. And it's really weird, because the weird comments, for me, actually completely ruin the good ones. And I find myself less interested in finding good comments and more interested in hunting out the negative ones. And I think it's a really bad character flaw in me, honestly. It really is. I should be able to control my urge to go nuts on these guys on the internet. And you might say, oh, well, it's the internet. It doesn't really matter. And I don't necessarily get mad in real life. I just get depressed. I mean, I get a headache, as I said before, if I read too much of this stupid crap. And it actually induces my stress allergies, if you can believe that. This is one of the main reasons why I even have this condition to begin with. When you're in the position of being a pseudo-internet celebrity, again, whatever that means, I don't even view myself as one, but when you are in that hypothetical position, you have a lot of followers and you have a lot of people wanting to talk to you just like a real celebrity, but you have none of the filtering. You don't have staff controlling your social media. You don't have people in the way providing a wall and a filter between you and a lot of stuff being thrown your way. Celebrities get a lot of shit as well, but they don't have to read it. And when I'm dealing with a YouTube channel, it is in my best interests to read the comments, because I will find out useful information and feedback that way. But the problem is, if I try and do that, then I just end up seeing the stupid stuff and going, rah! And yeah, Hulk smash. I think that those are the best and the worst parts of being a so-called internet celebrity. Again, it's the people that you interact with, and you see the very best of humanity and you see the very worst of humanity through this unfiltered system where everybody is anonymous and apparently nobody is happy. Alright, next question comes in from Ryan Graves 18. Do you stay in contact with boys over at the Yogscast since the blew up? The first thing was, well, this term, the blew up, and people were like, oh, did something happen? No, nothing's happened between myself and the Yogscast. It's more of a case that their organization has actually ballooned into a fully fledged company with their own offices. Like, my offices are at home because I don't need an office building. I don't want it. I want the ability to sit here, not wear any trousers, and commentate videos. And I can do that from the comfort of my own home with my nice PC, my nice room, air conditioning, and my big ass chair. I don't want to go into an office. Why would I want to? And it would just be completely outlandish to do that. At the moment, our company is very small. The Yogscast company is actually very large. They have a lot of partners now under their own sub-network. All of the Yogscast Sips guys, Yogscast Duncan, everything like that have their own channels, and they're all built within this one network, and a lot of them work within that office environment. They are much larger than they used to be. It's not just two guys anymore. So I guess that's what people refer to when they say the blow-up. But no, I talk to them regularly on Skype. I was the guy that recruited Yogscast to TGS in the first place. And even though they're actually a lot bigger than I am now in terms of the channel, and I'm incredibly happy about that, I do try and still watch out for their interests and keep up to date with what they're doing. So I focus more on helping my newer recruits now, because Yogscast doesn't really need any help anymore. So I don't really deal with them quite as much. And I wouldn't say that it's like it was back in the WoW period where I was doing everything I could to try and grow their channel. I was putting videos on my channel to link to them. I was actually front-paging their videos that were on their channel just to push traffic in their direction, doing collabs and all sorts of stuff. But you reap what you sow at the end of the day, and it's always beneficial to at least do a few things with the Yogscast, and more importantly, not even talking from a business standpoint, I like playing games with them. They're fun. They are cool guys. I like being involved in them. They are just very, very busy right now. So I don't necessarily expect to see a huge amount of video content coming from me and them in the future, but that is definitely not to say that I don't keep in contact with them anymore. I very much do. Those guys are great friends. Alright, next one is from Stormtrooper Dave. What is your favorite biscuit? It is the chocolate hobnob. Comedian Peter Kay referred to it as the Royal Marine of tea-dunking biscuits, and of course they would absolutely be correct. So what is a chocolate hobnob? It's kind of an oat biscuit. It's like compressed oats and grains, but it does have a sweetness to it as well. It's got a really nice texture, but you then cover it in chocolate, and that makes it even better. It's half chocolate cover, incidentally. And those Americans that do not know, biscuit is not the same in the UK as it is in the US. No, indeed not. It is essentially a cookie, although there are a great many varieties of biscuits in the UK, a huge variety of biscuits, the likes of which you have never seen. Your paltry cookies are nothing in comparison, absolutely nothing. Biscuits are unfortunately very, very fattening, so I don't eat cookies or anything anymore, but there are a few others that I think warrant attention. Let me give you a short guide to the best of British biscuit. There are some humble starters for those of you who cannot handle the more complex varieties, but the Rich Tea and the Digestive Biscuit are two of the most popular brands, but also some of the most bland. They are designed for the most part for dipping in tea. I feel that the Digestive is a better biscuit to dip in tea, and the reason being that it doesn't go quite as soggy quite as quickly. The Rich Tea is a less dense biscuit. It has slightly more sweetness to it than the Digestive, and as a result, it can taste better, but you have to be more careful. You cannot leave it in the tea for too long, and as soon as you dip, you must eat immediately. It would be unwise to allow it to soak into the biscuit, whereas in the Digestive, you get a benefit from that. Those are the very basic biscuit varieties. You then go on to the basic varieties of sandwich biscuit, which include custard creams and bourbons. Bourbons are chocolate sandwich biscuits whereby you have a chocolate-flavored biscuit on either side with chocolate cream in the center. Now, it isn't like an Oreo. These things are not quite as crunchy, and they're not quite as sweet either. They've got more of a reserved taste, which is really quite awesome. They are definitely a classic biscuit. The custard cream is a cream that tastes like custard. It's fairly obvious by the name, and these things are generally smaller. Bourbons are very long biscuits, but they're quite thin. And then the custard cream is more of a blocky biscuit. It's less lengthy, but it is wider. And those are biscuits you can buy very, very cheaply. They are value biscuits because you can just get them from any supermarket and get the value brand. They'll still taste exactly the same as all of the main stuff. So, yeah, it's like getting generic drugs. That's pretty much what it is. Biscuits you can acquire in great numbers for a low, low cost. And then, of course, you get onto the fancier stuff, and there are many a fancy biscuit. I would say that Fox's is one of the companies that makes some of the best, and it has some absolutely fantastic stuff. Any of the Fox's Crunch Creams are phenomenally good. They are sandwich biscuits, but they have a biscuit on either side, which is designed to be very, very crunchy indeed, and the cream filling is always good. The Ginger Crunch Cream is one of my favorite. The Golden Crunch, also very, very good indeed. And then, of course, you get to the really fancy stuff that either has fondant in it, maybe it's got a solid chocolate covering, which is usually much, much higher end. And then, of course, you've got these more kind of jelly fillings. We should, of course, mention the Jaffa Cake, which is actually technically not a biscuit. It's called Jaffa Cake for a reason, but a lot of people refer to it as a biscuit anyway, and it's eaten in the same way. I have stopped eating Jaffa Cakes because I can eat an entire 12-pack of these things and not stop, and then I feel very sick afterwards. It's like the Pringles of biscuits, I would have to say. Once you pop, you really cannot stop. You just stuff these damn things down. It's a terrible, terrible idea. Really, really bad indeed. There are also some fantastic biscuits that you can get that are more of the homemade kind of variety. Scotland puts out some amazing shortbread, for instance. Indeed, that's to the point where you can even get some of the really basic stuff. I think Walker's shortbread, I think that's the name of it. It made its way over to the US, and you can easily buy it here, and that is phenomenal. And quite frankly, when it comes to cookies, well, the Americans do need to learn somewhat from the UK biscuits. Oreos are not even close. Not even close. Don't even get me started. And as a result, do not sell all that well in the UK. And with good reason, because they suck. Alright, let's get one last question out, because once again, this has been dragging on. It's going to be a long series. Here's hoping that people actually watch it. We'll see, as I say. If it's something that people don't bother to watch, then we just won't bother to put it out. Alright, the last question. Any new shows being planned? Well, there's this one, I suppose. That was from Joe Chambo, incidentally. And currently I'd say that my schedule is so packed that adding a new show would be kind of impossible, he says, as he's doing a new show right now. Since Jen manages my schedule, she's got something of a rule. If you want to do a new show, then you've got to cancel an old one. Now, the only show that's really likely to happen to, at least in the foreseeable future, unless, of course, we finish Terraria in the next few episodes, is the mailbox. The problem with the mailbox is that there are only really a finite number of questions you can ask without getting a lot of repetition. And mailbox lately, the quality of the questions has been very bad indeed. Now, I don't entirely blame the people that were sending them in, because there's so many episodes of the mailbox, it's impossible to keep track of what you have answered and what you haven't. I vaguely remember about times when I'll just answer the same question, not even realize that I talked about it 50 episodes ago. And, of course, you guys wouldn't either. It's nuts, and I think that show is getting to the point where it will probably need to be replaced. Now, I'm not going to do it yet, because I've got to think about exactly what I would do. But my main idea is to create a gaming news show kind of along the lines of Azeroth Daily, but with gaming news, and with elements of my old gaming podcast, Gaming Express. And any of the guys that left WoW Radio and came to listen to me on cynicalbrit.com before I started all the YouTube thing know about Gaming Express. It was a 15-minute-a-day audio podcast which rounded up the news of the day, and the point was, of course, to inform people and give people a nice, easy way to figure out what the balls was actually going on. Now, I'm trying to think of the best way to actually do this. There are a number of problems. So the first problem is that how would you do it on a daily basis without spending loads of time, and that would, of course, cause the rest of the content to drop in frequency and quality. The last thing I want is to get into a situation where it's taking up all day to do one of these shows. Especially since it will not be one of my most viewed, I can guarantee it. Less people are interested in gaming news than they are in WTF Is or Terraria or things like that. But I still want to do a show like this because there really aren't all that many that do it well on YouTube. So I think there's a gap in the market for it. I know if I was just a consumer that was quite busy, it would be kind of awesome to be able to watch a 15-minute show and have the latest current affairs updates. And you can't really run out of content for that. You're always going to find news on a daily basis. The gaming scene is so large that it would be very easy to locate that. I'd also like to start pushing traffic to really good news sites and keep people away from stuff that sucks, like Kotaku, for instance, which I think many people view as terrible, and with good reason, because it is. There are sites like Giant Bomb, VG247, Rock Paper Shotgun, and GamesIndustry.biz, Gama Sutra, and all sorts of sites that people could really go to find out a lot more about what's going on with gaming, and I would really like to encourage people to do that. I think that a format like that might, but I'm not 100% sure. So I've got to think about how to do it. The second problem is, what do I put in the background? Because if I'm just going to put random game footage in the background that has nothing to do with what I'm saying, then I don't want to do the show. I would want it to be somewhat more professional. So I'd have to put game screenshots and game footage in the background, which is fine. I mean, I have access to a lot of that stuff. But the main problem is that lately there have been a number of companies that have been copyright claiming trailers and footage, which would actually just blast the show out of the water. It would make it impossible to put it up, because I'd end up getting copyright claims on a news show, which would be a nightmare. Why would that happen? I'm having thoughts, I'm having ideas about how this might end up working, and yeah, it could. It very well could. Some people are asking for more FaceTime from me, which I hate the idea. I hate the notion of it. Focusing on my face is not what anyone would want to do. Are you crazy? But I think that if you want people to really focus on what you're saying, then you should be showing it to them. And you shouldn't be having them split their attention. If I show game footage in the background, I don't also want to put my face on it, because that then splits the attention between the two. I want you to be paying attention to the game footage itself. But I've got some ideas about how it might end up working, and I will most likely pursue it. This is not a, I'm going to kill the mailbox. No, it's just a contingency plan for, I think, the point when that show inevitably dies its death. I think that what will probably happen, which would be really weird, is that Mailbox will be incorporated into the show in some way in a more limited format that takes up less time and is less reliant on user questions. Currently, we have an entire show that is daily reliant on good user questions that I want to be able to express some fairly complex opinions on. Currently, I don't have the means to do that because the questions act as a platform, and if they're just repetitive stuff or they're chock full of the opinion of the person that actually sent it in rather than allowing it to stay open for me to discuss, then the show just declines in quality. It's weird because Mailbox came from Azeroth Daily. It was part of Azeroth Daily, then became its own show. It may very well go back into another show and be incorporated into whatever gaming show I decide to do. But once again, if you happen to have feedback on this issue, then feel free to leave a comment and let me know as to whether or not this is the kind of thing that would interest you. I'm hoping that it would. Again, I want to shake the channel up a little bit while still sticking to the same kind of content. I want to be able to adapt show concepts, expand the nature of the channel, and just widen its appeal while keeping its credibility. And I think that the way to do that would be to address gaming news in a more professionally presented kind of way while still being able to express my opinions on the matter. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Alright folks, you have been watching Ask TotalBiscuit Anything. This series will continue for the foreseeable future. My name has been TotalBiscuit, and I shall see you next time.